Welcome to BizSimplified. Imagine this. There's a sudden, massive, totally unpredicted spike in global demand for your absolute best-selling product. Prices are literally soaring off the charts. Sounds like the ultimate business dream, right? But here's the catch. The real test isn't the demand itself, it's whether you can actually meet it. Can you instantly ramp up your production to grab all that extra revenue, or are your operations completely bottlenecked? That specific responsiveness, the gap between wanting to produce more and physically being able to, is the ultimate test of your market agility. Let's break down exactly how this works.
Here is the roadmap for today's explainer. We'll hit 1. The core of supply, 2. The mathematical engine, 3. The extremes of elasticity, 4. Navigating the middle ground, 5. Case study measuring responsiveness, and 6. Market structure takeaways.
Section 1. The core of supply, price elasticity. Okay, let's jump right into the foundation of all this. What actually drives a producer's behavior when the market goes a little crazy? Well, in microeconomics, we use a very specific metric, and it's called the price elasticity of supply, or PES for short. It's honestly pretty straightforward. It's just the percentage change in the quantity you supply divided by the percentage change in the price. We aren't just guessing how a business feels about pricing. This is an exact, hard number that tells us precisely how sensitive and how agile a supplier is when that price tag moves.
Moving on to Section 2, the mathematical engine, calculating PES.
To really master this, we've got to look under the hood. The universal formula is basically a two-step engine. First, you figure out the percentage change in your quantity. You just take the new quantity, subtract the old one, and divide by the old one. Simple, right? Then, step 2, you do the exact same thing for your price. Finally, you just divide your quantity percentage by your price percentage. And by the way, we use percentages instead of raw numbers because it creates a totally level playing field. It lets us compare massive, completely different industries head to head.
Think of it kind of like a giant architectural framework. The math we just talked about, it literally acts as the foundation supporting every structural decision a business makes. If your physical foundation is rigid and inflexible, well, your ability to adapt to sudden market prices is going to be totally rigid too.
Section 3, the extremes of elasticity, infinite versus zero.
So supply responsiveness isn't just one size fits all. It lives on a really wide spectrum. To get it, we have to look at the absolute extremes first. On the far left, we've got perfectly elastic supply. This is where elasticity actually equals infinity, creating a totally flat horizontal curve. What this means is suppliers will produce an infinite amount at one exact price, but if that price drops by even a fraction of a cent, boom, supply instantly drops to zero. It's a theoretical extreme, but it sets the boundary. Now on the right side, we have a very real extreme, perfectly inelastic supply, where elasticity is exactly zero. This curve is just a straight vertical line. This happens when the amount supplied is utterly stuck, no matter how ridiculously high the price shoots up. Think about prime commercial real estate in downtown Tokyo. It doesn't matter if developers show up with billions of dollars in cash, you literally cannot magically spawn more land in central Tokyo. The supply is completely fixed, the responsiveness is zero.
Section 4, navigating the middle ground, relative elasticities.
Okay, but most real-world global supply chains aren't operating at those crazy extremes, right? They're navigating the middle ground. The absolutely crucial thing here is knowing whether you lean elastic or inelastic. If your elasticity is greater than 1, you have a relatively elastic supply. That means a tiny little bump in price leads to a massive, outsized jump in the quantity you can pump out. You're super agile. On the flip side, if your elasticity is less than 1, you've got a relatively inelastic supply. Even if the price goes through the roof, your production limitations totally restrict you from ramping up. Your response is, well, pretty sluggish. Let's ground this with some real-world stuff. Take mass-produced textiles coming out of Vietnam. If the global market price of a basic t-shirt suddenly jumps, those factories can just flip a switch, add a night shift, and source more raw cotton almost overnight. Their supply is relatively elastic. E is greater than 1. Now contrast that with a factory building specialized heavy machinery in Germany. If the price for those machines skyrockets, they can't just magically hire 1,000 highly specialized engineers by tomorrow morning or instantly source incredibly complex microchips. They are bottlenecked by physical reality. So their supply is relatively inelastic. E is less than 1. And smack in the middle, we have unit elastic supply, where E is exactly 1. That's when a 10% price bump gives you exactly a 10% production bump. You see this a lot in standardized, moderately scalable industries like basic digital electronics.
Section 5, case study, measuring responsiveness.
All right, let's actually put this into practice and run the numbers on a real scenario. We're looking at a boutique manufacturing firm over in Europe. They wake up to a super favorable market shift, and the going price for their premium product has jumped from €2 to $2.50. Highly motivated by that extra cash, the firm scrambles and manages to bump up its production, taking their quantity supplied from 25 units up to 30 units. Now, here's where it gets super interesting. When we visualize the underlying math of that shift, jumping from 2 to 2.50, that is a solid 25% price increase. But when we look at the production side, jumping from 25 to 30 units is only a 20% increase in actual quantity. So let's run our mathematical engine. We take that 20% quantity increase, divide it by the 25% price increase, and that gives us a final price elasticity of supply value of exactly 0.8. And because 0.8 is less than 1, we've just scientifically proven that this firm's supply is relatively inelastic. Even with a huge financial carrot dangling in front of them, they just couldn't scale their output fast enough to match the price surge.
Let's step back for a second. Inelasticity kind of gets a bad rap, but it isn't necessarily a failure. Usually, it's just a harsh physical constraint. That boutique European firm, they probably hit a brick wall when it came to warehouse space, or finding specialized labor, or maybe they just ran out of raw materials. These structural pillars of a business are exactly what dictate where on the elasticity spectrum a company is forced to live.
Section 6, Market Structure Takeaways.
So, pulling this all together, what are the big takeaways from this explainer? Well, first off, PES is literally the ultimate stress test for market agility. It clearly separates the companies that want to scale from the companies that actually can scale. Second, while those wild, extreme elasticities set the theoretical boundaries, it's the middle ground, like our boutique case study or that German machinery example, that completely dictates daily operational strategy. And finally, mathematical models like PES are the secret sauce. They turn abstract academic theories into hard, actionable data that business leaders can actually use to make decisions.
I'm going to leave you with a thought to chew on. If the market price for whatever it is your business produces suddenly jumped 20% by tomorrow morning, would your supply chain actually allow you to capitalize on that demand? Or are you structurally inelastic, forced to just sit there and leave money on the table? Understanding your elasticity isn't just some academic exercise for a textbook. It is quite literally the blueprint for your strategic survival. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today on BizSimplified.